I am very happy.
Why?
Because I know someday I will die.
Type O Negative, the band that every thrash fan and every goth girl can agree on. Everything revolves around the legend, the giant, the vampire, and the well-hung Peter Steele, who had just gotten out of the band Carnivore, the legendary thrash band. If you've never listened to them, I implore you to go and check out Carnivore's first two albums, Carnivore and Retaliation. The song Male Supremacy has got to be one of the greatest thrash songs ever written. Then he had a short-lived band called Fallout, and then that didn't work out. And he was considering becoming a New York City cop, but he was afraid that he would have to arrest all of his friends. And speaking of his friends, he quickly got together with his other funny buddies. You had Josh Silver on keyboards, you had Kenny Hickey, who played guitar and would actually sing on a lot of Type O Negative's material and do backup vocals with Pete, had more of a higher range. And they also got with our big boy Sal on the drums, and they called the band Repulsion, which was already the name of another band. They're going to call themselves Sub-Zero.
So hence the symbol I came up with, the O with the negative, and there's -0. But once again, someone beat us to it, and we're from Brooklyn, and there was a band from Queens, which is only like 5 miles away, called Sub-Zero. And they had rights to the name. So after getting this stupid thing tattooed on ourselves, it was up to me to think of a name to compensate for the logo. So I don't normally listen to the radio, but there was a request for Type O Negative blood by the Red Cross. And so I was like, well, that's it, Type O Negative.
And then they began working on a demo that they were calling None More Negative, which would actually turn into the album Slow, Deep, and Hard against their will.
Josh went to his mom. He borrowed $6 grand from his mom to do the demo. And I just remember him driving me goddamn crazy, man. $6 a minute! Get it right! It's my mother's money! And at the time, we were trying to get a record deal, and then Peter was already previously signed to Roadrunner for Carnivore, and they just stepped in and, you can't sign to anybody but us. So,
Right.
and they were like, okay, we're gonna make the record over again. Nope. They just put the demo out as the record.
So when I strieved to do was to create an album was like half Black Sabbath, the other half Agnostic Front, Cro-Mags, Murphy's Law.
Type O Negative's entire discography, and pretty much every song, is great. They are one of the most consistent metal bands out there, or goth bands, depending on what you even consider them. But with this album, Slow, Deep, and Hard, it is pretty much relentlessly hardcore thrash riffs and then slow, dirgy, doomy sections, making super long, epic songs out of this, with the dirgy sections honestly overpowering the lengths of the songs. But it makes for a really kick-ass listening experience where you just grind everything as slow as possible, then bring it up as fast as they can go. And then even though most of their albums go for different directions, this is actually showcasing the funny and dark lyrics that this band would have. Like, for instance, in one of the greatest songs on here, Gravity, they say 1, 2, 3, 4, I don't want to live no more. And it has a really great lyric at the end of the song.
Suicide is self-expression.
They were equally goofy and sarcastic as they were also serious. They were the kind of people that would poke fun at themselves and be serious about their own depression.
The whole first album was about your desire to kill your girlfriend and then kill yourself. You have always had fantasies of killing yourself and killing your girlfriend. Is that true?
More or less.
And you say Kurt Cobain is your hero because he had the balls to shoot himself.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Is this
a depressed guy or what?
Are you more depressed than me?
I think I'm repressed.
No, you're a little depressed, right?
Sometimes.
Have you gone to a psychiatrist for this problem?
Yeah, but he told me I was crazy. He told me to get out.
He did. He even didn't want to deal with you. No one wants to deal with you.
Laughing.
And you have great songs on here as well, like Kill You Tonight and I Know You're Fucking Someone Else, which is the longest song on here, and it is the most classic. And this was actually based off of Peter Steele's paranoia and problems with women always cheating on him or worrying that that's what's going to happen to him.
I know you're fucking someone.
Front to back, it's excellent. Make sure you don't skip the misinterpretations of silence. A lot of people don't get it. You have to turn it up a lot and really pay attention, then it'll all make sense. Now, the band actually got into a ton of controversy with one of the songs of this album, deemed Social Parasite as its smaller title, because for some reason the band wanted to troll everyone, and every song title on the album has this super lengthy, over-the-top thing, as you could probably see with these features. And this song, which was dubbed Der Untermensch on the album, whenever they played it live, it was both a German title and, of course, the lyrics are poking fun at lazy people that should go get a job. And when they were playing in Europe, everyone was accusing them of being Nazis.
I mean that if people choose not to work, if they choose not to contribute to society, why should they have a voice? And why should they have a say in what goes on? If you're not contributing, then you must be taking away.
He was just not given any freedom. They forced his demo out as an album. They forced a live album onto them. So Pete decided to get them back. So with Origin of the Feces, which as you can see, the album cover was a distorted picture of Peter Steele spreading his asshole, and Slow, Deep, and Hard is actually a distorted picture of a dick going into a pussy. They decided to troll Roadrunner with this, but instead of giving them an actual live album, they made the worst fake live album they could. They recorded it in their basement with their friends throwing things at them and yelling, you suck, which it would actually become the intro for the band. Every show afterwards, the fans would chant, you suck, as they came onto the stage. There's so many funny moments in there. There's a fake bomb threat, which is based on a real bomb threat that had happened in Europe. They had to shut the whole show down. And Pete just comes back on stage and says, let's just get this over with. And I love how at the end of the show, there's just absolute silence. There's no cheering at all. It's just crickets. I actually love this, and I'd almost consider it an actual album and not just a live album, because it is just a studio recording with fake live noises. But I love most of it and the directions that they take the songs. They simplify things, but they actually remove a lot of stuff I liked. Like, they removed the classic ending of Gravity for absolutely no reason. And they do bring a cool cover of Hey Joe on here, but they call it Hey Pete. And the song Are You Afraid is excellent. It's actually the first song the band would do, which would take on the new direction for their next album.
Slow, Deep, and Hard was, in fact, a bunch of leftover Carnivore songs. I believe that people become a reflection of their experiences. So my life changed a lot between Carnivore and when Typo was instigated. Let's just say from like 86, 87 to like 89 or 90. I started to listen to a lot of different music, like The Cure, Curve, Lycia, Simple Minds. You know, people want to call that pussy music. Well, you know what? You call me a pussy, you are what you eat.
With this album, they go for the goth metal direction, as we all know. And this became the most famous era of the band. Most people associate Typo Negative with the goth image. And most of the songs on this album actually go in that direction, the more gothy doom sound, with some poppy elements. With the exception of two songs, two excellent songs, Kill All the White People, which is obviously a parody of what had happened with them in Europe, and my arguable favorite Typo Negative song ever, We Hate Everyone. And there's a lyric in there that says, the left thinks I'm a fascist, the right thinks I'm a communist. Honestly, I do not understand why they cut these two songs off on the Digipack version, because I get it. They're like, well, let's make a version where it's only the goth songs. We're gonna cut out all the noise tracks, cut out the two thrashier songs, and they add a song called Suspended in Dusk, which is just slow dirge with Peter whispering into the mic. But they wanted the album to be completely gothy with this version. There's just classics front to back on here. Obviously Christian Woman, which had 2 radically different music videos with radically different vocal performance tracks from Pete on there. Both versions excellent, and it's just such a good song. It's about a Christian girl basically getting the hots on for Jesus Christ. And I love how at the ending of the song it actually gets extremely thrashy. And then, of course, She Likes the Dark with Black Number 1, the goth anthem. An epic song, and I love how this song, Black Number 1, and Christian Woman, which are super long, they don't feel long, and they're classics regardless. And they're better than the longer songs in the last album, which kind of felt like they drone on at some points. And this just feels like it's nothing but meat for 11 minutes straight. What's funny and interesting about this song is that the title and the lyrics are basically making fun of goth chicks that Peter used to date, because they'd always dye their hair that dark black color, Black Number 1, and all the lyrics are making fun of them, saying that you want to sleep with Nosferatu and all of this. But the ironic thing is that this great spooky song ended up bringing in hundreds of more goth chicks to the band, where they were obsessed with Peter.
Do you know anyone here on the panel?
I know her. These young ladies I have yet to meet.
And then also on this album, they're introducing the fact that they're one of the best cover bands of all time. Their cover of Summer Breeze is excellent. And then on the next album, they do an amazing cover of Cinnamon Girl. And then they do a great cover of Angry Inch. And one of their best covers is the medley of Beatles songs, the Day Tripper medley. And the most shocking of all is around this time they actually did a cover for the Nativity and Black Sabbath covers album of the song Black Sabbath. They somehow managed to take the original metal song that was one of the most evil songs ever and make it creepier by singing it from Satan's perspective. Every single song works on here, and it's honestly probably my favorite Typo Negative album, because although all their albums are pretty much great, it's like throw a dart at what's going to be your favorite Typo album. To me, it's like this has the most variety of great stuff I love from Typo with their best songs, especially on the original version. Now, this time they had actually opened for Motley Crue.
Motley Crue asked you to go out. You were like, what are you, crazy?
How is this going to work?
How the hell is it going to be? No way, no way. He says, do it.
It'll be good for you guys. You guys should definitely do it.
And that's it.
Reluctantly, we did, and that's what put us on the map.
Yeah, we went from selling 50 albums a week to selling 2,000 albums a week. I'm like, in 1 week.
When I had found out that the Bloody Kisses went gold, I'm like, this is like a nation of deaf people. I'm like, I didn't take the band seriously. I mean, we would call ourselves assholes before you did, but we really meant it. And I would come out and say, I can't believe you fucking jerk-offs are actually paying to fucking see this. And there was a few shows that I called people up on stage and I gave them their money back and I threw them out.
And then ever since then, Typo Negative had become legendary and got really popular, not only from the goth scene, but blowing up as the best opening act of the 90s, opening for Motley Crue and especially Pantera. And then the infamous Playgirl magazine issue that Peter Steele had agreed to do.
Did you see the scratch and sniff version of the Playgirl issue?
No.
Oh, you missed it.
Oh, now you tell me.
Well, let me see if I could dig up an issue for you in the back. You'll like how it smells.
Oh, okay.
He had so much controversy from this. First of all, he had a hard time having a hard time.
Why is it that it seems that every interview you read with Typo, there has to be something about your penis? Why do you think it's such a big deal, Peter?
Why it's such a big deal?
Uh-huh.
Well, it's going to be a long story.
Tell me,
it's
I got
be
time.
Hard to tell.
You had a signing and, I would open it up. Hey, I know that dick. One time this guy, and like the band sitting next to me, signing Typo stuff too. And so the guy hands me the Playgirl thing, and I tilt it, and fucking cum drips out from the fucking middle, right into my lap. and the band saw it, and they like just fell over in their chairs, and I said, can I have a napkin, please?
Unfortunately, around this time, Sal was no longer in the band. I believe it's kind of because his playing and timing was a little sloppy and off time at points. And Peter is so particular with his music that after this point, all the albums, with the exception of Dead Again, all have drum machines on it, even though they would hire the drummer John Kelly to play with them live and be an official member of the band.
October Rust. If you haven't got it already, what's your problem? Right, exactly.
I wouldn't buy it. I don't know.
I'm certainly not as angry as I was 5 or 6 years ago, simply because I don't think that I'm the same person that I was. I've certainly grown. I hope up, not down.
This is the sellout album of all sellout albums, in the sense that literally no one ever calls this a sellout album, even though it technically is. Hell, the band would jokingly apologize and say, sorry guys, we sold out. This is where we try to get all the chicks into the band, which was the intention. And it was successful, and everyone still loved it. It is an absolute classic and widely regarded as probably their most beloved album. Instead of focusing on goth or thrash or doom, with this album they're mostly focusing on their melodies. And with all the female attention Peter was getting, he of course dedicated several songs about them, like My Girlfriend's Girlfriend, which is hilarious and sounds a little bit like The Doors. And one of my favorites, Wolf Moon, which is about Peter Steele eating a girl out that's on her period and then turning into a vampire werewolf. And with that song, there's still some doomy darkness on this album. And even especially on the song Haunted, which ends the album, it's just a slow dirge. And one of the other great songs, Redwater Christmas Morning, it's just a depressing Christmas song that manages to use jingle bells and make it sound doomy. And the song The Green Man is actually about Peter Steele. And a lot of people forget that Peter actually did have a job coinciding with the band as the supervisor for the parks department, where he would literally drive a fucking garbage truck around. And that's what made him fall in love with the color puke green that they use on every album. It has to be the specific color of ugly green on everything.
It was black and that horrible green.
And every record, it was very specific, and every shirt.
Peter needed consistency. He needed continuity. Otherwise, he would strangle you.
Yeah.
The green's wrong.
But at this time, they got so big and he was so busy that he literally had to quit his job. That I honestly think he preferred doing than even being in the band for some reason. And then Peter's bass playing, writing, and singing especially are just absolutely at their best on this album, especially on my favorite song, Love to Death, where he can just go from heavy to melodic, and it honestly is one of the greatest love songs of all time. Shockingly, the album only went gold compared to Bloody Kisses going platinum, but of all sellout albums, you can't go wrong with this one. If you're gonna sell out, do it the way Peter did.
Seems like everyone I truly love has died, and there's a handful of people That had to be the most serious album that we ever did. There was nothing funny about that album at all. But I was going through a very difficult time.
So what's the direction on this album with all the things going on in Peter's life? Well, let's look how the album starts. Well, it has that track called Skip It at the beginning, which is literally just skipping noises on a CD player, which seems archaic to people our age. But then it hits you with the song White Slavery. You're hearing like literal funeral marches at the beginning. And that goes into by far the darkest, doomiest thing this band has ever done. A song about Peter Steele's new acquired cocaine addiction. And it is one of the strongest songs of their career.
There's an old saying that it's better to learn from the mistakes of others than your own. So I was hoping that maybe our fans can get something out of my mistakes. That I was a very clean person. I mean, well, not that
not
kind of
today.
Yes, I am clean today.
You look like you shaved.
Once a month, whether I need it or not. If I could fall into drugs and alcohol, I think that that anybody can. So I just, would like to warn our fans, like, walk with me, but don't follow me.
And this spells doom for the album in a literal musical sense, because the whole thing is doom metal almost beginning to end. Depressing beyond belief. Because of the success, he had addictions to alcohol, addictions to cocaine, addictions to smoking, and he actually highlighted a lot of that on some of these little interlude tracks that actually one of them had given him a panic attack. He also had a ton of family members die at the time, like almost all of his immediate family all at once, and songs like Everything Dies is literally just a depressing melodic song about the fact that when Peter would go to these family gatherings now, he was the most lonely person on earth because like everyone was gone now. And then as if that wasn't stinging hard enough, you also have the doomier song that's about the same subject matter, Everyone I Love Is Dead. He's actually extremely autobiographical with the lyrics on the song where he says, substances used to mask a weakling's hurt, it's just like painting over dirt. Literally, his longtime girlfriend was gone at this point too. He just had almost nothing to live for except this band, so he poured his heart and soul into it. The whole thing is unbelievably dark and depressing. So if you're looking for the heaviest, doomiest, darkest thing this band could possibly do, then this is the one. It's definitely the most metal and the most depressing, that's for goddamn sure. But it's extremely relatable, but it's so depressing. The only moments of levity here are like moments on Pyretta Blaze. It can be a little goofy, a song about Peter's love for fire. And of course, the Day Tripper Beatles medley at the end, which is really funny. That medley, because it's not just one Beatles song in there, it's a couple of them. They had to pay a lot of money to Michael Jackson at the time, who owned the Beatles catalog, for the rights to use a Beatles song, let alone like 3 or 4. And they didn't realize until after they secured the rights and after they'd already recorded and put it on the album. And it cost them out the ass to even put this on here.
We wanted to retitle it Gay Stripper. But so you have a sense of humor, most people don't. And parodies don't go over too well. Now, if you were like a band of Weird Al Yankovic's,
Yeah.
then it would probably work.
It would probably work.
Gay Stripper.
One-way ticket, yeah. It took me so.
Now, I get it, the album is beyond bleak. Some fans didn't care for it. Pete even thought it was too hard to even listen to. He wanted to stray away from it afterwards. But honestly, it is arguably the best thing that they ever did, front to back. It is so emotional. It is so real.
Where the have you been the past 4 years? Like, what the hell was going on, and why haven't you graced us with your presence?
Well, I had a dream. It was like God came to me and said I should start digging to the center of the earth. So I've been busy digging.
Seeing as though the last album was the most depressing thing ever released on an album, they had to change directions in a more lighter tone. This album was much more popular, more well received. In fact, the opening track, which is a super punky, catchy song, and honestly one of their best songs ever, I Don't Want to Be Me, is one of their most famous songs. It's such a good song, and I show this song to get anyone into Typo Negative. Now, one more song I want to highlight on here is actually the fan favorite and widely considered these days to be their greatest song, with amazing atmospherics, great piano playing, and Peter's best singing of all time on here, Anesthesia, which never clicked or made sense with me until recently, and now I completely understand. It is by far one of the most emotional songs, and it is mostly based off of Peter's troubles at this time, especially with women. This album honestly has some of their absolute best songs on it, but overall, it's a bit of retreading water, and it's personally my least favorite. Some songs just aren't as strong.
It's been a while since Typo was toured, between prison and rehab and attempted suicides, murder, divorces, childbirth, liens on homes, broken bones, the plague, and so As you know, Bensonhoist was not built in a day, so you can't force,
Brooklyn boys.
can't force creativity, and not that I'm creative, but normally I write songs by stealing riffs from Beatles albums played backwards. I have a special turntable, and actually they're saying I buried Pete, not Paul, which I find kind of prophetic and scary.
Oh God, I'm dead again. I can't believe I died last night. I'm fucking dead again.
I wanted this next album to sound more like a hardcore album, but the stuff that I've been writing lately is kind of like Pink Floyd meets Black Sabbath. So it's like Stink Floyd.
He's wanted the last 5 albums
This
to be a
stuff
hardcore
you've
album.
been writing for the last 15 years. You've wanted it to be
A hardcore album for like the last 8 albums. I'm gonna be a hardcore
I'm
album.
like a broken record. I'm like a broken record.
Alright, you ready? Hardcore.
As much as Life is Killing Me is a little overrated by the fans, I feel like Dead Again is extremely underrated. It's actually one of my favorites from them. It's the same kind of direction as Life is Killing Me, where they're doing a best of their career and sounds. But this time they focus a little bit more on the slow, deep, and hard era. They have more thrashy and crossover thrash and hardcore elements. And Peter originally wanted it to be a hardcore album, but he wants every album to be that way, and it always falls apart. He can't help it to make gothy, catchy songs. So what's new to this album? Well, Pete's Christianity actually plays a huge role in this album. With all the suffering that had been going on in his life, Pete actually became sort of a born-again Christian, but more of a respectable one. He was raised as a Catholic, but he didn't want to ever force his views on anyone, and he was still the funny, goofy guy that could write great songs, so it didn't matter at the end of the day. But it did inspire really good songs on here, like These Three Things and Prophet of Doom especially, which are just scorching epics.
Everything about my life influences my songwriting. And I think upon the death of my mother about 1.5 years ago, kind of got me a little bit closer to God, because it made me realize my own mortality.
Another reason why this album is so underrated, you have the band's equivalent to Stairway to Heaven with their song September Sun. It's one of the most melodic ballads they've ever done, and what's funny is it has a lot of great singing from Kenny Hickey as opposed to Peter Steele. And the reason that is that almost every time Kenny would complain that the lyrics or the melodies of a song are corny or cheesy, Pete would be like, all right, well then you sing them, asshole, and then force him to sing that part of the song. Him being forced to sing these corny lyrics, it actually made the song more powerful than even if Peter had sung it himself.
Only the deaf hear my silent shout. Yet in the dark, still he screams your name.
It's very hard to pick a best song on here when it feels like a best of compilation, but to me, the thrashier moments on the song Tripping a Blind Man has got to be the best for me. And the song's lyrics are actually about Pete's family, or the leftover remnants of his family, having interventions with him when he was very strung out. And then in the last song of Typo Negative's career, Hail and Farewell to Britain, Pete at the end of the song literally says, and hail and farewell to me. Arguably their most consistent album front to back and so underrated. The sound is great, the playing is great. I think that this album is mostly underrated just because it's the only one that wasn't produced by Roadrunner. He finally yanked out of that contract.
When like the best of Typo Negative came out, and they didn't even tell me about it, I was kind of put off about that. I mean, since Carnivore, 1983-84, I'm the person who's been signed to Roadrunner Records the longest. I'm like the grandfather of failure. You know, they could have at least asked my input as to what this product should look like. You know what? I tell fans, don't fucking buy it.
Josh Silver had actually left the band for a little bit to become a paramedic. So the band became a prolific touring act and didn't really work on any new music until Peter Steele tragically and suddenly passed away, which was so shocking because, yeah, he had his demons and his struggles, but to have heart failure at this point in his life, he was very healthy and finally happy. But you know what? How ironic, right? I feel like Peter would actually get a huge laugh about this in the afterlife, right? How ironic that finally the moment that this depressed guy that had suffered his whole life and his life was a sick joke, and he's like, you know what? Maybe I'm finally successful and maybe life's finally good. And that's the exact moment that he finally keels over. Ain't that the meaning of life though, right? But I would say I'll see you guys next time, but I'm feeling pretty happy, so.
How would I like to die? I don't know. It wouldn't really matter so long as I felt I made a difference in the world.
You did, you made it worse.
Josh, how would you like to die?
We are going to be auditioning guitarists.
I don't care as long as it happens now.
Subscribe to the Downfall Network.
No!